You can't be serious. I slammed the storage unit door so hard the metal rattled. The smell of cheap glue and fake leather oozed out like a dirty secret, filling the air with a sharp, nauseating tang. Karen, standing there with her arms crossed and chin raised, smirked like she was queen of the damn universe. Community storage is for everyone's use, not your personal flea market. I hissed, my voice shaking with rage. Oh, please, she scoffed, flicking her bleached hair back. You wouldn't understand real business. This is a harmless side hustle. A harmless side hustle. My God. Row after row of boxes stacked inside the Homeowners Association storage unit, each stamped with shady Chinese labels, reeking of knockoff sweatshops, fake Nike, fake Gucci, fake Adidas, all piled high under flickering fluorescent light. I froze. My heart raced. Was this real? Was Karen, the self-proclaimed protector of Homeowners Association values, the same woman who fined me for leaving my trash can out 5 minutes late, using our Homeowners Association facility to run a black market shoe racket? I let out a shaky laugh. You've lost your mind, Karen. This is illegal. Do you hear me? Illegal. Karen leaned closer, her perfume mixing with the acrid stench of fake rubber. Illegal. Ah, you think anyone's gonna believe you over me? You're just some whiny neighbor. I'm on the Homeowners Association board. Her words sliced through me. She was right, wasn't she? She always got away with her schemes. Bullying, extorting, bending rules for herself while weaponizing them against others. People feared her, hated her, but no one dared cross her. I swallowed hard, my hands trembling. One day, Karen, one day, is gonna catch up with you. She smirked again. Not today. Slam. She pulled the unit door shut, locking away her empire of fakes like it was untouchable. But that sound, the clink of the padlock, stayed in my head. Metallic. Final. Like a coffin ceiling. That night. Couldn't sleep. The ticking clock was deafening, each second clawing at my conscience. Was I really going to let her run a smuggling operation under the HOA's nose? What if the feds came and thought we all were involved? What if I became collateral damage? I stared out the window at the streetlights bathing our cul-de-sac in a cold orange glow. Somewhere in the darkness, Karen's smug laughter echoed in my skull. Damn it, I whispered, dragging my hands down my face. She's not dragging me down with her. The next morning, coffee in hand, I called an old friend, Mark, ex-military, ex-something else too. He never said, but I knew he'd done federal work. His voice was gravelly over the phone. You're saying she's moving counterfeit goods through an Homeowners Association storage unit? Jesus Christ. Mark, I'm telling you, there's boxes on boxes. I smelled it. I saw it. Do not confront her again. Not like that. His tone hardened, like steel. Document. Record. Get proof. Then let the professionals handle it. My stomach tightened. Proof. Right. But could I? 2 days later, I found myself crouched in the shadows. Heart pounding so hard I swore Karen could hear it from 50 feet away. She was unloading a new shipment. White vans rolling in under cover of dusk. Headlights off. Men in hoodies tossing box after box inside. Snap. My phone camera clicked. Snap. Snap. Every photo burned into my gallery like hot coals. One of the men glanced around. My breath hitched. For a second, I thought he spotted me, but Karen's shrill voice cut through the night. Hurry up. And be careful with the Yeezys. Yeezys. God. She didn't even hide it. My finger hovered over the record button. My entire body trembling. Her laugh echoed. Brash. Arrogant. Like nails down a chalkboard. The next morning, I turned everything over to Mark. His eyes scanned the pictures. Jaw tight. Then, without a word, he pulled out a phone I didn't recognize. punched in a number and spoke in clipped phrases. Community smuggling operation. Counterfeit goods. Evidence collected. Location confirmed. I shivered. He wasn't calling a buddy. He was calling the real deal. 3 days later, the raid came. It was early, barely sunrise, when the rumble of black SUVs shattered the quiet of our neighborhood. Doors flew open. Men in jackets with bold yellow letters storming out. FBI. The words slapped across the morning air like thunder. I stumbled to my porch, coffee forgotten in my hand. Oh my God! Neighbors peeked out, gasping, whispering. Phones held high to record. The once pristine cul-de-sac erupted in chaos as agents swarmed the community storage facility. Karen appeared in her robe, mascara smudged, screaming at the top of her lungs. This is a mistake. You can't do this. I'm on the Homeowners Association board. Agents ignored her. The metallic screech of bolt cutters rang out as they snapped her padlocks like toys. The door yawned open and there it was. Mountains of counterfeit shoes spilling out, tumbling onto the pavement. Gasps. Murmurs. Phones flashing. Someone yelled. Holy crap. She was running a black market. Karen shrieked, lunging forward, but 2 agents restrained her. Her face twisted red, spit flying as she screamed. This is harassment. They're mine. Mine. One of the agents read her rights as handcuffs clicked tight. That sound, sharp, final, was like poetry. But then came the twist. An older man in a suit stepped forward, ice cold, holding a file. He looked at Karen with a mix of disgust and pity. You should have stopped when you had the chance. Karen froze. Her eyes darted wildly. Wha? Who are you? The man raised his badge. You. Customs and Border Protection. You've been under watch for months. He said flatly. We knew you had a distribution channel. We just didn't know where. Until now. Her knees buckled. For once in her life, Karen, the terror of the Homeowners Association, the woman who barked orders like a drill sergeant, was silent. I exhaled, my chest heavy. The crowd whispered, buzzing like bees, feeding off her downfall. Some cheered quietly. Others shook their heads in disbelief. And yet, deep down, I felt relief. A storm had passed. But Karen wasn't done. Not yet. As they shoved her into the SUV, she locked eyes with me. Me, of all people. Her lips curling in a vicious snarl. You did this. Her voice cracked. She looked almost feral. You'll regret it. I swallowed hard. My pulse spiked. Did she know? Could she tell? The SUV door slammed shut, muffling her rage, and the convoy rolled away, leaving only dust, whispers, and the shattered reputation of a woman who thought she was untouchable. For days, the neighborhood buzzed. Karen's empire exposed. The Homeowners Association board in shambles. Investigators combing through finances, tracking buyers, uncovering the web she'd spun from inside our quiet cul-de-sac. And the irony. The same board she ruled with an iron fist voted unanimously to ban her for life. The woman who screamed about community rules had been destroyed by the very laws she weaponized. One evening, standing on my porch with the cicadas humming in the background, I let out a long breath I hadn't realized I'd been holding. It was over. Or was it? Because sometimes, even after the raid, even after the downfall, you still hear echoes of the monster that lived among you. The slam of a storage unit. The metallic clink of a padlock. The hiss of a mocking laugh in the night. And I wonder, had I truly won? Or had I simply survived her storm? If you felt the chills of this story and believe Homeowners Association Karens always get what they deserve in the end, don't forget to like, share your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe for more jaw-dropping real stories on our channel. It all started with her voice sharp, high-pitched, slicing through the summer air like a damn fire alarm. They don't belong here, she screeched from the edge of the pool, pointing a manicured finger at my nephews like they were stray animals. I stood there frozen for half a second, heart pounding in my ears, before storming over with one thought pulsing in my chest: this woman picked the wrong family to mess with. The pool had been a place of peace for us. Ever since my sister moved into the suburb, she'd let her kids, Jaden and Marcus, both sweet, athletic boys barely 12, use my HOA pass. I lived in the neighborhood, they lived 5 blocks out. Big deal, right? Nope. Not when Karen from the HOA board was on patrol. Oh, she made it a big damn deal. I know they're not residents, she spat, flipping open her tacky little clipboard like it was a holy book. We have rules. Guests must be accompanied by the member. I blinked. They are accompanied by me, she scoffed, lips curling like she'd smelled garbage. You just walked in. They've been swimming for half an hour unsupervised. Violation. Deep breath. My fingers tightened around the strap of my bag. Karen, you've seen me bring them here before. There's never been a problem. There is now. And just like that, the air turned colder than the chlorinated water at our feet. This wasn't just about a pool rule. Not his was something nastier. Her eyes lingered too long. Her voice dipped into something condescending and bitter. You could feel it, couldn't you? That nasty, crawling prejudice hiding behind fake policy enforcement. Jaden stood quietly beside me, towel around his shoulders, dripping wet and confused. Marcus looked at her like she was speaking another language. Are we in trouble? He whispered. I shook my head. Not even close. But damn, I was shaking inside. Karen didn't stop there. Oh no. 2 days later, I got an official violation notice taped to my mailbox. Unauthorized guests at the pool. One more and I'd be fined or banned. Banned? I'd lived there 5 years longer than her. Bought my home cash. Never missed a payment. Never even had a noise complaint. You want to play dirty, Karen? Okay, let's play. I started digging. See, most people just grumble when the HOA does something shady. But Not may have a background in civil policy research, and my cousin's a paralegal. We don't just grumble. We file. And what we found? Oh, chef's kiss. Karen had been forging proxy votes at the last 3 HOA meetings. Turns out, a few of the residents who voted for her initiatives weren't even presenter alive. One guy moved to Florida 3 years ago, but his name showed up supporting her anti-guest policy last quarter. You can't make this up. I printed everything. Every vote log, every fake signature. Took me 2 weeks, 3 coffee-fueled late nights, and a whole lot of screenshotting. But when I walked into the next HOA meeting it was glorious. Karen was sitting smug as ever at the head of the table, sipping her diet soda like she owned the damn building. I waited until new business began. I'd like to bring up an ethics concern, I said calmly, sliding a folder across the table. Karen's smile faltered. What kind of concern? She asked, voice clipped. The kind that involves forgery and fraud, specifically related to board voting procedures. These are proxy signatures you submitted for the last 3 quarterly sessions. Correct. I flipped open the folder. Silence. Yeah. Someone muttered down the table, peering at the names. Wait, didn't Anderson move? Florida, I confirmed. March of 2022. But his signature's on the July vote. A low murmur rippled through the room. Karen's mouth opened and closed. I was just people gave me permission. Without written consent? Without dates? That's fraud, Karen. I could feel the air shifting. Her power? Crumbling. She tried to laugh it off. Come on. Are we really gonna act like this is Watergate? And just then, the twist hit harder than I could have dreamed. A voice from the doorway firm. Unmistakable. Yes, we are. Because what you've done violates 3 city ordinances on HOA board transparency. City officials. 3 of them wearing badges, holding tablets, and get cease and desist order. Apparently, someone else in the neighborhood had anonymously reported Karen's incident at the pool with my nephews. And after a few resident interviews and 1 shared security camera video, things escalated quickly. You denied access to the pool based on race, one of them said, voice calm but lethal. That's not just an HOA matter. That's discrimination under the Civil Rights Act, and your position does not shield you from accountability. Karen's face, ash white, her voice, gone. They read the complaint out loud. How she'd called my nephews those kids. How she claimed they don't belong. How she muttered, "We need to protect the neighborhood image. Protect the image." From 2 children. The residents? Mortified. Some were stunned. Some angry, but one thing was clear. Her support had evaporated. And then came the lawsuit. Yeah, you guessed it. The city filed formal charges for HOA misconduct, voter fraud, and discriminatory behavior. She tried to spin its aid I orchestrated the whole thing. Claimed I set her up. Can you believe that? But here's the kicker. Her own emails betrayed her. See, when the city confiscated her HOA laptop, they found drafts of newsletters she never sent with language like preserving community culture and limiting external influence. Dog whistles. Big, ugly ones. You could hear jaws drop at the hearing. And me? I just sat there, silent. Let the weight of her own words bury her. They removed her from the HOA board. Publicly, she had to issue a written apology to the entire community, which nobody believed. And get this, because of her forged votes and misuse of power, all her policy changes were reversed, including the pool rules. Jaden and Marcus got honorary pool passes for the summer, gifted by the HOA itself. Want the final twist? Karen's house was put up for sale. 2 weeks later, no one in the neighborhood speaks to her. Realtors whispered the truth behind her urgent relocation. Her name? Cautionary tale. Sometimes karma doesn't knock. Kicks the damn door down. As Karen packed up that gaudy lawn flamingo and ripped her board member parking only sign off the curb, I couldn't help but stand at my front porch and watch. Not with glee, but with the quiet satisfaction that comes when justice finally catches up with arrogance. She avoided eye contact. Naturally, shame has a funny way of bending the spine. Rumor had it, her husband filed for separation shortly after the scandal broke. Something about too many lawsuits and tired of cleaning up your mess. Can't blame the guy. Her name was now attached to a discrimination case so public, it made local news twice and was cited in a city memo on HOA reform. Her face, red and trembling, ended up on a few thumbnails. The internet doesn't forget. Meanwhile, the community began to heal. At the next block party, Jaden and Marcus ran through sprinklers, while neighbors brought over watermelon and barbecue. One woman even came up to me and said, "I had no idea it got that bad. I am sorry. And thank you." That meant more than she knew. The HOA board is now led by a kind, older couple who believe in inclusion and transparency. Policies are reviewed openly. All votes recorded publicly. And yes, the guest pass rules were rewritten with a clear clause against discrimination of any kind. The boys swim freely now. They smile more. And I no longer walk into that pool area holding my breath. Karen's lawsuit is still pending as of last month. She tried to sue the HOA for emotional distress and defamation. Seriously? After everything? But the city's legal team isn't playing games, and the pile of evidence against her is, well, poetic. Funny how the louder someone yells about rules, the more they end up breaking them when no one's watching. As for me, I learned that staying quiet never helps the right side win. When people abuse power, especially under the guise of neighborhood order, you've got to speak up, document, expose, fight back. Because sometimes the law isn't just a shield. It's a sword. And when karma swings it, it doesn't miss. If stories like this make your blood boil and give you a little hope, hit subscribe on my channel. We've got more HOA horror stories and lawsuit takedowns coming that you won't believe. I always knew something was off about Karen from across the street. The way she smiled too widely when someone new moved into the neighborhood, then immediately cited them for a mailbox being 1 inch too tall. Yeah, that wasn't friendliness. That was control, gift-wrapped in HOA authority. But I never imagined she'd go this far. Started with a dull thump one night around 2 a.m. I shot up in bed, heart racing. What the hell was that? My garage sits detached at the end of the long driveway, separated by hedges and shielded from the main road. The motion sensor lights didn't go on. That was weird. I crept down the hallway, grabbed the small flashlight from the drawer, and peeked through the blinds. Nothing moved. Still, the pit in my stomach churned like sour milk. I sighed. Maybe a raccoon? I tried to sleep, but I wasn't crazy. The next morning, the door to the garage was slightly ajar. I'm meticulous about that door. I know I locked it. Inside, nothing looked missing, but it didn't feel right. Tools were slightly rearranged. My workbench drawer, where I kept some old army keepsakes, was half open. And on the ground, right by the back tire of my truck, lay a plastic baggie with something white inside. My throat tightened. No way. No way. It looked like cocaine. But I hadn't touched that stuff ever. And suddenly I realized this was planted. Someone was setting me up. And then it hit me. The HOA board had been giving me hell since I moved in. My lawn was too dry. My wind chimes were audibly intrusive. I installed solar panels. Karen tried to find me for unauthorized rooftop additions. And just last week, she yelled at me during the board meeting in front of 10 people, her face redder than a fire hydrant. You think you're above the rules because you were in the military? This isn't Fallujah, it's Maplewood Estates, she'd snapped. I clenched my fists at the memory. She wouldn't, would she? But then I remembered something that gave me chills. 2 weeks earlier, I had quietly agreed to let a DEA friend use my garage for surveillance on a suspected drug house 2 blocks away. My garage gave them a perfect view between trees. I gave them a key and signed off. It was all hush-hush. Even my nosy neighbor Mark thought I was just working on a secret woodworking project. I didn't even know they were actively watching yet. So I made a choice. I didn't touch the bag. I backed out of the garage slowly, locked the door, then walked casually back to the house and called Agent Rivera. Her voice on the other end was sharp and clear. Do not remove anything, you hear me? We're setting up thermal drones tonight anyway. Whale increase focus on your property. That night I barely slept. My hands were clammy. My thoughts raced. Was Karen trying to get me arrested? Evicted? Just ruined? And then around 2:40 a.m., my security cam pinged. Motion detected. I opened the app. The footage was grainy. But there she was, Karen, in her hideous pink bathrobe, hunched over like some cartoon villain, creeping across my lawn with a black duffel bag. No freaking way. She slipped around the back, disappeared from view. My stomach twisted into a knot. I waited, barely breathing, gripping my phone like a lifeline. Then flashing lights. Red. Blue. Sirens erupted. I rushed out to the porch just as 3 unmarked SUVs pulled up in near silence. Karen let out a high-pitched scream as agents swarmed the backyard and garage, flashlights scanning. She dropped the bag crackling on the cement and tried to run. Big mistake. 2 agents tackled her before she hit the hedge. Get off me. I'm the HOA president, she shrieked, hair wild, bathrobe flapping. This is my neighborhood. Agent Rivera, calm as ever, walked up and said, No ma'am, this is federal land now, and you just tampered with an active DEA operation. Karen's face went pale, and I just stood there on the porch, watching it all unfold with my coffee in hand. Oh, the karma. It was delicious. They hauled Karen off screaming that it was all a misunderstanding. I was just checking for pests. I smelled skunks. He has raccoons. I swear. But inside the duffel bag? Packets of narcotics. DA-marked decoys. She'd stolen them from an evidence drop they were using to bait traffickers. Probably thinking she could replant them and accidentally discover them later in my garage. Set me up. Frame me. Remove me. All while looking like a concerned citizen. But the cherry on top. The whole thing was being live-streamed to a DEA van parked 2 houses down. They caught everything. Her breaking in. Her digging through drawers. Her stuffing her gloves with baggies. Her muttering, Let's see him get out of this one. And then boom, arrested on camera. I found out later she was already under investigation. Not just for HOA violations and harassment, but for suspected connections to laundering money through community beautification projects. Apparently, a lot of HOA funds had been mysteriously rerouted to shell companies in her sister's name. Oh, how the mighty had fallen. I wish I could say that was the end of it. But of course, Karen being Karen, she tried to sue me from county jail. Claimed I was the one who planted the drugs and used the DEA as a false flag operation. Her lawyer lasted 3 days before backing out. My neighbors? Most of them had hated Karen for years, but were too afraid to say anything. After her arrest, people threw an actual block party to celebrate. No kidding. We even made cupcakes shaped like little handcuffs. I stood under a string of lights in my driveway, watching kids run around with sparklers, thinking, this woman tried to destroy me and ended up destroying herself. Justice doesn't always come with a bang. Sometimes, it shows up quietly in a bathrobe caught on camera just as the DA says, "Gotcha." 3 weeks later, I received a letter in the mail. Karen was officially pressing a lawsuit against me. The envelope was thick and dramatic, like she thought she was sending me a death sentence. She claimed I had orchestrated a federal entrapment operation to humiliate her publicly, that I was a militarized neighbor using government tools for personal vengeance. My jaw dropped. She really thinks she's the victim here? But the best part? The lawsuit backfired so hard it practically broke the sound barrier. You see, by filing it, Karen forced the court to open her financials. Her HOA embezzlement came roaring into the light. Every shady dollar, every bogus landscaping invoice, every so-called maintenance fee funneled to her cousin's fake pressure washing company. By the end of that week, she wasn't just facing federal charges for tampering with the DEA sting operation. She was slapped with a second lawsuit from the Maplewood Estates Homeowners Association, now led by a new, much nicer president, Miss Alvarez from 3 doors down. The court froze Karen's assets. Her Mercedes vanished. Her vacation condo turned out to be in foreclosure. And as her attorney scrambled to withdraw, citing irreconcilable conduct, I couldn't help but smile bitterly at the irony. She wanted to bury me with a fake bag of drugs in my own garage. But in the end, she buried herself in a mountain of lawsuits, federal indictments, and public humiliation. I heard through the grapevine she took a plea deal to avoid prison 10 years probation, full restitution, and mandatory psychological evaluation. And Maplewood? Well, let's just say it blossomed without her. As for me, I finally got peace. The garage is still under surveillance, sometimes DA rotation, but now the only things being watched are squirrels and the occasional raccoon Karen once swore she was saving the neighborhood from. And I mounted her HOA badge on my garage wall, right above my retired Army plaque. Perfect pairing. Funny how people who crave power over others often end up powerless themselves. Thanks for listening, and if you want more real justice, wild revenge, and satisfying endings like this one, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Who knows? Maybe the next story will be about your neighbor's lawsuit gone wrong.
It started with a knock I'll never forget. 3 loud bangs like someone was trying to punch their way through my front door. I swung it open and there she was, Karen. Arms crossed, sunglasses too big for her face, and that trademark sneer like she just smelled a fart. "You've got a suspicious structure in your backyard," she announced, voice sharp like a blade. "And I've already filed a report with the HOA and local law enforcement." Wait, what? I blinked, trying to process what this banshee of a woman was talking about. My shed? You're calling the cops over a damn tool shed? She raised her chin, looking entirely too proud of herself. It doesn't match the community guidelines. Could be anything. Meth lab. Hidden bunker. Illegal farming. I've watched Breaking Bad. I know what sheds are used for. God help me. Now let me back up a bit. I'm a 38-year-old guy who moved into this overly manicured, beige cookie-cutter HOA neighborhood about a year ago after leaving federal service. I served with the DEA, yeah, that DEA. I worked narcotics enforcement for 12 years and retired with enough stress to last a lifetime. Bought this peaceful little house thinking I could finally grow some tomatoes, grill in peace, and maybe build a small shed for my gardening tools and personal projects. Nothing illegal. Nothing shady. Just solitude. But solitude was never an option with Karen living 2 houses down. She was the self-appointed compliance queen of our HOA, didn't even sit on the board. yet acted like she was the board. She reported people for mismatched fence paint, holiday decorations, wind chimes that were too melodic. I wish I were joking. When I first installed my shed, a simple, brown structure with a shingled roof and reinforced walls, I didn't think it'd cause a fuss. But the moment it went up, Karen's eyes locked onto it like a predator spotting its prey. And now apparently she'd escalated. The cops didn't come that first day, but her HOA complaint triggered an official property notice. I was told I'd need to verify the contents and purpose of the outbuilding to ensure neighborhood safety. Can you believe that? Neighborhood safety. Over a shed that housed some lawn fertilizer and antique boxes I hadn't unpacked since retirement. That would have been annoying enough. But Karen wasn't finished. Oh no. The very next day, I came home to find two strangers poking around my backyard. City inspectors, following up on a tip from a concerned resident. One of them actually pulled out a notepad and said, "We were told this might be a concealed narcotics operation." I laughed out loud. That was the moment I realized what Karen had done. She'd not only lied, she'd gone full tinfoil hat conspiracy theorist on me. She weaponized the system because she didn't like my shed's color or placement or God knows what else. But here's the part Karen didn't know. This suspicious structure? It was built by former DEA agents. See, I didn't just retire and disappear. I teamed up with a couple of my old squad buddies, men with decades of tactical experience, and we decided to start a side business doing consultancy and private tactical training for law enforcement teams. The shed was actually reinforced because we occasionally ran drills there, simulated breach entries, evidence cataloging, gear maintenance. Nothing crazy. Nothing illegal. But everything completely off Karen's radar until she decided to poke the hornet's nest. I could have just explained the whole thing to the HOA and city inspectors, cleared it up with paperwork, smiled, nodded, played nice. But no. Something in me snapped that day. I'd spent years breaking down the doors of actual criminals, cartels, and meth heads. I was done being polite to people who used bureaucracy as a weapon. I wasn't going to let Karen paint me as some suburban Walter White just because she needed a hobby. So I made a call. 3 days later, a few of my buddies showed up quiet. No badges, no guns, just professionals with intense stares and arms folded like bouncers at the gates of hell. We staged a little training session. Nothing too dramatic. Just enough tactical gear and acronyms to scare the hell out of anyone snooping over the fence. And Karen snooped. I caught her peeking through the slats of my fence that evening, phone up, snapping pictures, whispering like she was narrating for Dateline NBC. They're wearing vests. I think they're loading something. Oh my God, is that a sniper case? The next morning it happened. Flashing lights. Loudspeaker. Police cruisers everywhere. A full-on response team pulled up at 7:12 a.m. They weren't here for a warrant, they were responding to a call about domestic terrorism. Karen had told 911 that militia-looking men were arming up in my backyard and possibly constructing a bomb shelter. Let that sink in. She told them I was building a bomb shelter with armed militants in a suburb with 3 Starbucks within walking distance. The best part? One of the responding officers had trained with me. He stepped out, recognized me immediately, and burst out laughing. "Are you serious?" he said loud enough for the other officers and Karen to hear. "This is DA Scott's house. You've got to be kidding me." Karen was standing on the sidewalk in her robe and slippers, arms waving dramatically, screaming. "He has combat men in there. They were doing drills. I heard foreign accents." The officer turned toward her, still chuckling. "Ma'am, you're reporting DA veterans doing a private training session on private property with no weapons drawn. You understand this is not a crime, right?" "But it looked criminal," she shrieked. That's when the twist hit her like a sack of bricks. See, Karen had given a false report of terrorism. Not once but twice, and this time it was to federal law enforcement. Guess who else I called that week? That's right, my contact at the Department of Homeland Security, just to give them a heads up in case Karen escalated further. And boy did she. Within an hour, Karen was placed in handcuffs. Not aggressively, no one roughed her up. But the look on her face as 2 agents read her the formal charge of filing a false report involving threats to national security infrastructure was chef's kiss. She wailed like a soap opera villain. "This is a mistake. I'm the victim. That shed isn't even HOA approved." Someone nearby muttered, Lady, it's a shed, not a missile silo. I didn't even need to say a word. I just stood there in my backyard sipping my coffee, watching the whole thing unfold like it was divine retribution. You know that deep, satisfied sigh? The kind you let out after a 10-hour flight when you finally take your shoes off and sink into the couch? That was me. And Karen? She was escorted into the back of a federal SUV, while still screaming about code violations. Karen didn't go quietly. As the SUV pulled away, she was still yelling from behind the window something about civil rights, and how she was going to sue everyone from me to the HOA to the state itself. But none of that mattered anymore. The moment she filed a false federal report, Weish stepped out of her HOA turf war and into felony territory. And trust me, the DA doesn't play softball when you call them militiamen with bomb-making intentions for fun. The fallout? Oh, it was glorious. Word spread fast through the neighborhood. People who used to nod politely at Karen now crossed the street to avoid her. A few even came by with beer and popcorn to ask what really went down. One older neighbor clapped me on the shoulder and said, "We always knew she'd mess with the wrong person someday. Didn't expect it'd be someone with federal connections though. Nice." Her court date was scheduled 3 weeks later. But it didn't stop there. See, her arrest became public record. And the HOA board, tired of her constant drama, finally took a stand. She was officially banned from filing future complaints on behalf of the HOA. And her access to the community app was revoked. No more Karen rants about suspicious wind chimes or overgrown daisies ever again. But the cherry on top? I filed a lawsuit for defamation and emotional distress, and I wasn't alone. 2 of my DA friends who were here during her terrorist accusation did the same. Turns out, falsely accusing decorated veterans of domestic terrorism doesn't just get you arrested. It gets you served. Her lawyer tried to downplay it, but the judge didn't buy the concerned citizen routine. Karen ended up settling. Quietly. Expensively. Last I heard, she put her house on the market probably to cover legal fees, and moved out of state. Somewhere with fewer sheds, I hope. As for me, I rebuilt the shed. Bigger. Better. And yes, fully HOA compliant just to be petty. If you enjoyed this wild ride of karma, tactical takedowns, and HOA chaos, don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more stories that prove sometimes a good lawsuit is the best revenge.